Now I know. Now I know that after all of those times that you came at me for eating in your videos, you did not roll up here with some, to be quite fair, delicious, homemade tamales and masticating in my Lindsay Nikole video. I know that you are not disrespecting me like that.
Neighbors made them.
I will forgive it. I will allow it. You have to give me a bite.
You don't want this one.
I do.
No.
I want. In fact, I'm looking at that corner right there. That's the corner that I want.
It's not good. You're not gonna like it. Ew. Ew.
It's cold. 6 minutes eating a cold tamale.
I don't have time to heat it up.
Go upstairs and heat up the tamale. Go.
What about this one? You wanna try this one?
Go heat up the tamale. I'm gonna finish my intro.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm finishing my intro, you go heat up the tamale.
You want another one?
Yes. What up, Ho Biscuits? It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. We're back for part 2 of the Lindsay Nikole video. I low-key thought he was gonna be back sooner than this, which I don't know why. Like, the microwave, the kitchen is downstairs. Anyway, we're back for part 2 of the Triassic period with Lindsay Nikole. If you have not already checked out the first part of the Triassic period, go ahead and check that out. Also, if you haven't checked out the rest of the History of the World that we know of series, go check that out as well. You guys already know I love Lindsay Nikole. I love these videos. Just some added context for those of you guys who might be new to the series or who might forget. I was homeschooled in a Christian homeschooling program that essentially denied evolution, okay? Like, no bones about it. So I don't know none of this shit. My schooling didn't even acknowledge that the earth was more than 10,000 years old. So all of this information is 1, new to me, but 2, incredibly fascinating to me. So I'm really enjoying it. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe and sanitized. Whenever Travis gets back is when we will start shooting this video. I'm super excited to see what it has in store for us. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Now we're picking up where it should have left off, the sauropsids. Like I mentioned earlier, the Triassic period is when the dominance shifts from synapsids to sauropsids.
Right.
The synapsids in the Permian have a fossil record that indicates they were much larger and more diverse than the sauropsids, occupying more dominant roles in their ecosystem. Coming out of the Permian mass extinction and into the early Triassic, this is generally still the case. The dominant shift didn't happen overnight, and synapsids still held relatively more significant roles in their recovering ecosystems, at least that we know of. But during this time, they must have been diversifying to shit, because by the middle Triassic they had become the dominant group in many communities and exploded in a level of diversity that a single lineage had never seen before this in such a short amount of time, taking over the land, skies, and seas, as I'll break down in a minute. But I want to start off by introducing you to a few miscellaneous species that came out of this explosion of diversity before we get to the major takeovers. Starting off with arguably the most flamboyant bad bitch in the Triassic.
I like it.
Longisquama, about 4 inches long during the middle and late Triassic. Their most distinctive feature is obviously those blade-like structures coming off their back. What exactly they were used for is still a big mystery, but there are plenty of ideas. Some researchers believe this was an early experimentation with feather genes. They seem structurally and morphologically similar. And at one point in the 80s, some scientists threw around the idea that they could have helped them fly through the air or glide, but I don't think that idea had a lot of footing. Other researchers pointed out that these structures were too thick to be true feathers, so maybe they were just some other form of a elongated or modified scale. Others said maybe they were some sort of in-between, distinct from both feathers and scales, which I guess I kind of already covered by saying a modified or elongated scale, but I digress. Whatever they were, there was definitely some weird experimentation with scaly features of these sauropsids of the Triassic as they diversified. And this next one will prove to you that there was definitely some experimentation with overall proportionality as well. Trypanosaurus, some sort of demented rat chicken lizard from the late Triassic. Their body plan is unusual, to say the least. They're about 1 foot long and had a pretty massive set of claws, with one disgustingly larger from the rest. Looks like they stole it from a creature 10 times their size. They also had a thick, prehensile tail that also seems to have
A
had
little
its own claw at the
That's
end of
kinda
it.
cool.
What exactly they were is unclear. They were definitely different from dinosaur and lizard lineages. Nevertheless, this heinous body plan was perfectly adapted for living in the trees. The tree-dwelling lifestyle, using the claws to hook onto tree bark and maybe claw at it and pull little creatures outside of it, snack on delicious insects.
Right.
Next. So, we all know turtles.
Turtle!
We love them. They are so cute and have been around for a very long time, appearing sometime in the late Permian. I also forgot to tell
really?
you about them last time. The earliest turtle that we know of is Ichythosaurus. Absolutely darling. They were about a foot long and, as you can see, had a kind of expanded rib cage, making it easy to imagine them as a step toward the classic turtle shape we're familiar with. Some of the more well-known Triassic turtles that we know of are Papachelis, Odontochelis, and Proganchelis, each having a different set of traits on their way to the true turtle shape. The shell, which is made up of the upper part, the carapace, and the lower part, the plastron, and a beak instead of teeth, etc. But the reason I wanted to bring turtles up here is because the turtle shape has evolved more than once, and there's a set of heinous representatives of this in the Triassic. So allow me to introduce you to my favorite, Henotus, a 3-foot-long placodont from the late Triassic. As you would probably guess, Henotus seems to have had a similar lifestyle as turtles do today, spending most, if not all of their time in the water, since their limbs made walking on land a bit strenuous. But their shell was much more square and flat than of today's turtles. Just a preferential difference, I guess. Alright, next. Steve told me to talk about them, but I was already planning on it. So, the group that has just one single remaining member alive today, the Sphenodonts, like he mentioned, is represented by the Tuatara of New Zealand. I guess that we know of. Maybe there's more species alive from this group that we haven't discovered yet. I don't know. The Tuatara is sick. At first glance, they probably just look like a classic reptile.
They do.
But they have 3 eyes. Yes.
Whoa.
3. The 2 classic ones, nice and big, you can see them. And then a third one on the top of their head that is much smaller. So in practice, it's probably just functional enough to maybe help them sense direction of light, maybe track the movement of the sun, maybe helps them feel more at peace with their spirituality, whatever. Sphenodonts in the Triassic were a pretty diverse group of little guys, and quickly achieved a really widespread distribution across the planet. So that's that. Those were the miscellaneous ones I wanted to talk about. Now, we're moving into the land, skies, and seas. And we're going to go in that order. So, who took over the land in the Triassic? Yes, the dinosaurs. Covering the dinosaurs first. So the first thing to know about the dinosaur lineage is that it emerged from a larger group known as the Archosaurs. Archosaurs evolved into dinosaurs. Let me get my whiteboard for this. So, see if I can get it without the light hitting it. Okay, can you see that? Archosaurs first appeared sometime in the early Triassic. They first evolved as fish and flesh eaters. But later in the Triassic, herbivorous groups also emerged. This allowed the Archosaurs to occupy a wide range of ecological niches, and this allowed them to become the most diverse group moving into the middle and late Triassic, and eventually led to a split in the most general sense. So you can think of, like, let's say this was surrounded by a tree, and then there's branches all over the place, and there's even some branches that don't really belong to either side of the split, but you can still kind of categorize them between the two. That makes sense. Like, maybe there's one, like, right there that's, like, barely on this side, but it's still on this side, technically. So on one side was ornithodyrents, also known as dinosaurs and pterosaurs, and the Crurotarsians, also known as the crocodilians. To keep it simple, I'm just going to use the common names. I don't want to say these words. I feel like Crurotarsians is like the same issue as rural, you know? It's just like, ugh. So, dinosaurs and pterosaurs on one side, crocodilians on the other. So, that's the context. Let's start from the beginning in the early Triassic. I'll show you some of the most memorable and or heinous representatives. I'm ready. Starting off with Proterosuchus, whose name means first crocodile or early crocodilian, but this wasn't the first crocodile. True crocodiles didn't appear until sometime in the early Jurassic. That we know. But an early crocodilian nonetheless. Proterosuchus was about 11 feet long. It kind of just looked like a distorted crocodile, or a crocodile on an acid trip, to keep in line with the theme of this video. The bones at the very tip of the upper jaw, or the premaxilla, were kind of downturned, so they looked like they hung over the side. And their head was naturally held upwards at a 17-degree angle. Fossil evidence of their brain cavity and structures within their inner ear suggests their auditory abilities were adapted for low-frequency sounds, which means they might have communicated with low-pitched vocalizations, like if anything, which is pretty horrible to think about. By just looking at them, an early crocodilian, you'd probably assume they had a classic crocodilian lifestyle, semi-aquatic. That was the assumption for a long time. But more recent studies, kind of looking at their qualities as a whole, suggest they might have just been basic terrestrial, which honestly I think is much worse than semi-aquatic. This, on land. All of the time. I don't like it. We're going to kick it up a notch with one that is just so horrific to look at. There is nothing I could do to prepare you for what this reconstruction looks like. It might be the worst one on the list. Erythrosuchus. Just grotesque. Looks like how a kid would draw T-Rex as a dog. So what happened here? What went wrong?
Good, dude.
Let's revisit what this creature was up against. A recovery from the most devastating mass extinction the world ever saw, followed by extinction aftershocks.
Wow.
The world was unpredictable in the most extreme sense. And one of the best ways to make it out alive of an unpredictable time is to live life like a relay race, rather than a marathon. Be born, grow rapidly, reach sexual maturity quickly, send the next batch out before you die and hope one of them sticks. Just send them out, 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 until eventually you got shit that looks like this. Because you're in survival mode, so fuck it. Send it out. Send it out, send it out, send it out. I know I'm kind of being mean because I'm making them sound pointless. That's not nice. It was obviously not the case. They actually seem to have been built perfectly for a lifestyle of an active carnivore. They had a robust skeleton, a massive skull that was armed with rows of sharp, menacing teeth, ideal for ripping into flesh. They got to about 15 feet long with a neck that took up about 0% of that. And maybe I'm projecting. Their head is so large. Maybe I'm just being mean because I know what that feels like. I'm projecting my own... I'm not insecure about it, but my head's fucking big. It's huge. That's why I have like 3 hats. I have a...
Take it off. Hey, man. Take that fucking hat
You
off.
want her to prove that she has a big head?
I want to see it. Give me one of those words like, it sounds similar to cranium, but means take it off. Uranium, that cranium. You know what I mean?
No.
You know what I mean?
I don't.
Like it rhymes with cranium, it means take it off. So I could say it back to back so it rhymes.
I don't think that word exists.
Expose that pose.
Next, Arizonosaurus. Right off the bat, you're probably thinking this must be the ancestor to Spinosaurus. No, not even close. For some reason, the sail was a fan favorite for multiple lineages. Dimetrodon had it, now Arizonosaurus, later Spinosaurus. Shit happens sometimes. And Arizonosaurus was just one of the few different archosaurs that had these tall neural spines on their back during the mid-Triassic. For what purpose? Could be a few things. Maybe thermoregulation like Dimetrodon, maybe sexual display, or species recognition. For our purposes, just another example of the weird shit that happened because of the Triassic explosion. Alright, next, Lotosaurus. Another archosaur with a sail on its back, but a little bit different. This one's definitely more heinous than that of Arizonosaurus. I like this one a lot less. They look like they're in an uncomfortable position, you know?
You kind of be fat shaming these archosaurs.
A little bit.
I don't like it.
She's going a little hard.
Like, they just a little hefty.
Yeah.
And not everybody is going to have a slender build, okay?
Need some wide backs.
Right.
Who's going to play the middle to front line?
Big back supremacy, man.
Yeah.
Know, like they could topple over at any moment. Makes me feel a bit uneasy. Instead of the classic jaws with teeth combo that we see in many other archosaurs, Lotosaurus possessed beak-like jaws, which suggests herbivory. They also had flattened ungual phalanges, which are the bones that support nails or claws. So they were probably very interested in digging or scratching or any other behavior you can think of that animals possess when they have claws and nails. Lotosaurus is mostly known from a single monospecific bone bed, a site where the vast majority of the fossils found belong to a single species. It points to a mass mortality event. They all died together and were buried together. Maybe a herd all dying due to a severe drought.
They
were all manipulated into a cult. We can't disprove either possibility as of now. All right,
you're not finna.
Maybe they were all manipulated.
Girl, what is this?
He put his little thumb together.
What is this picture?
I wonder where it came from.
I'm cracking the fuck up. Why is he praying to a cross? They wouldn't have even known who Jesus was.
He was in all of us.
We can't disprove either possibility as of now. All right, next. Definitely a fan favorite. Shringosaurus. 10 to 13 feet long and absolutely cool to look at. They had a pair of large, forward curving horns on their head that might have only been present in males, so maybe a sexual display thing or a tool for male-on-male combat. But more research must be done. They had robust bodies with elongated necks, possibly used in a similar manner as giraffes, browsing on vegetation at various heights, giving them a leg up in the competition. These are one of my favorites for sure. I just like what they got going on, you know? This right here is a good setup. All right, so moving into the late Triassic is when some of the first true dinosaurs start to emerge. One of the earliest known is Tawa, a simple badass snake. They were named after the Puebloan sun god because of where they were found in New Mexico. And they might have been one of the earliest theropods, which is the lineage that includes T-Rex, Spinosaurus, Velociraptor, species with that classic shape, you know, and one lineage of theropods evolved into birds. Separate from all of those that I just listed, they all had their own branches. T-Rex was not a bird, and I'll actually be covering that in a couple weeks.
Okay.
There's some bullshit that keeps circling.
Do we think they're birds?
A Redditor said that T-Rex...
Yeah. So the rumor has been going around for years now that dinosaurs were probably covered in feathers.
I've heard that.
Scales.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that.
So they're basically like, yeah, dinosaurs were just big ass furry bird or big ass birds, essentially.
Feathered reptilian birds.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm glad that she will be addressing that.
Good. I didn't buy into it.
Yeah.
Have you tried the dessert one yet?
I have not.
Just take a little piece.
I'm going to try the dessert one and then we're going to be done eating in the video.
I mean, you can be done whenever you want, but eat this first.
I don't want to eat the whole time. Oh.
Yeah. It's so good.
What is that?
I know. I have crack. I have no idea. I have no idea what's in this.
What is this flavor?
It's fantastic.
What is it?
It's addictive. Like, I'll put it down if you need me to, but I just can't stop eating it. I don't know what I thought, but this is so satisfying.
Is there cake in this?
Bro, I don't know what the hell I put in this. Okay?
Who gave this to us again?
Never. Mm-hmm.
You should make them something.
Must have had wings because he flipped the arms upside down, and now people are saying that scientists have confirmed that T-Rex was a bird. It's not. It was not, but I'll cover it in a couple weeks. Anyway, this is a significant group, and Tawa might have been at the very humble beginnings of it. At 6 to 12 feet long, so much smaller than some of the descendants, but absolutely cool. Nonetheless, one species from the late Triassic that was on the crocodilian side of the split was Desmatosukis, a 16 feet long, heavily armored tank that had bony plates and spikes covering its body from head to tail. These served as formidable defense against predators, making Desmatosukis a difficult snack to indulge.
Difficult, but not impossible.
If you try hard. It's also like eating a toothpick. Yeah, if you really think some positives here. Or maybe very aggressive fiber. Right. Scrape your insides.
Right.
But defenses like these don't evolve for no reason. Their existence suggests the presence of predators that were powerful, or at least almost powerful enough to rip them apart. Like Smilosukis, another one on the crocodilian
we do know what that is.
in a group called the Ichythosaurs. They had a maximum length somewhere between 24 to 39 feet.
That is a big
Definitely
boy.
one of the largest semi-aquatic predators of the time, that we know of. They had massive skulls and a set of unusual teeth with tusks at the front to skewer their prey. Despite looking almost exactly like modern crocodiles, osteoderms and all, remember those skin bones, they were not the ancestors to crocodiles or even in the true crocodilian lineage. Just
crazy. Also
on that side of the split. Another classic case of convergent evolution. The crocodilian form has worked for a variety of creatures in a variety of different ways. All right, so.
Which is what I was going to say, that's just proof that the form of the crocodile is just like one of those, in
OP.
the ultimate in the evolution.
She talks about so many things being, we got turtles and we got a bunch of different reptiles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that looks like just the same reptile we saw 100 million years before this point. It's insane.
But it's because it works.
It works.
Do you know what I mean?
It's effective. We're really getting down to it.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy, too, that we've seen nothing anywhere close to the human form.
Right.
We just came out of nowhere, just blindsiding the freaking, whatever these things are called, branches of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's the takeover on land, and a few semi-aquatics, but land section nonetheless. Like I said, there are countless other species that I could have included, so if I missed your favorite, tell us about it in the comments.
Yeah,
if you're
interested
interested in learning about other species, check the comments. Let it serve as a jumping off point. That goes for any section of this video or any other video in this series.
Sure.
But anyway, let's just keep the ball rolling. If you ask me, the most impressive development in vertebrates, in my opinion, was the evolution of sustained flight. Insects have been doing that for millions of years already. Yes, I definitely don't want to step on their toes. I mean, they zip around like nobody's business, and that is sick. Good for them. But the vertebrate evolution of sustained flight led to some of the largest flying animals the world has ever seen, that we know of. The beloved group, the pterosaurs. Which again, they're not dinosaurs, they just evolved alongside them. Well, true pterosaurs didn't evolve until the late Triassic.
Look at the size of that fucking chicken. Oh, the wings on that thing must be...
Stupid.
Boy, I tear that bitch.
Dumb.
Smoke that bitch for 16 hours. I'll tear that thing. I might be hungry.
A few earlier species provide ideas of flight experimentation, like Scleromochlus, a small reptile from the late Triassic in what is now Scotland. They were very small, about 7 inches long, with much of that length made up of a long, slender tail. Scleromochlus individuals were built for running or hopping. They had a light, agile build, and their hind limbs were much longer than their forelimbs, a trait shared with early pterosaurs, hinting that they or a close relative could have been the true pterosaur ancestor.
Right.
Maybe the running and hopping led to higher hopping assisted by small membranes to
Right.
catch the air, which eventually led to sustained flight.
Right.
Another idea is a more top-down approach rather than ground up. Maybe pterosaurs evolved from gliders, like Herbivore. They had elongated hind limbs with skin-covered membranes stretching between their legs and their body, allowing them to glide between trees like modern-day flying squirrels or sugar gliders, etc. Regardless of where they came from, by the end of the late Triassic, the first true pterosaurs had appeared, like Eunomorphodon. They had a 3-foot-long wingspan and all the key characteristics of later pterosaurs, like elongated fourth fingers to support a wing membrane, a short tail, and jaws lined with needle-like teeth for snatching up fish. And fish had a lot more than early pterosaurs to worry about, because we have arrived at the last big takeover, the seas. Sauropods got productive during the Triassic. While you're probably familiar with some of the major groups that lived on throughout the age of the dinosaurs, I'm going to introduce you to a few randoms that give this second wave acid trip its infamous reputation. Starting off with one of my favorites, and one of the weirdest of the Triassic, Adipodentatus. I know, and this is a correction to the original reconstruction that they had of it. The first fossil specimen was found in 2014 in China. With the way it was preserved, the mouth kind of looked like a zipper going down the middle of its face. Since this was the only fossil they had to go off of, this is the reconstruction that they came up with. A vertical mouth that looks like their face was slashed in half. 2 years later, they found another fossil. And what do you know? The first fossil they found was fucked up and had been crushed sideways. So they did not have a vertical wound for a mouth.
Like a duckbill.
Instead, they had a hammerhead snout. Arguably
that makes
just as
way more
twisted.
sense.
That mouth was filled with needle-like teeth. They might have used to scrape shit off the seafloor. Let me know what you think.
Again, like you talk about, calling out what it looks like that we have around here.
Yeah.
Maybe the head of a hammerhead for sure.
Right.
But like duckbill, like an elongated duckbill, things that we see all the time. So it's very possible. Very possible. Suboptimal because it's flat, but very possible.
I like them very much. All right, next, Tanystropheus, who had a neck like nobody's business. They actually have one of the longest necks relative to body size of any vertebrate that we know of, due to up to 19 hyper-elongated cervical vertebrae, giving it a neck that could be up to 3 times its body length. Those proportions don't make sense if you ask me. Their skull was wide and flat, and was likely used for ram feeding. Swimming through the water with its mouth open, like that, until something swam into it. And it's donezo. Their elongated neck might have allowed them to explore different depths and niches than other marine reptiles with normal-sized necks, which was great during this experimental phase. However, it also left them extremely vulnerable to decapitation. The guillotine's wet dream, if you will. But they definitely had the longest relative necks of the time. They were not the only ones with this elongated quality, because during the Triassic, the plesiosaurs appeared as well. The group that would live on to be known as the long necks of the seas. Why exactly this trait evolved multiple times is up for debate. One idea is the long necks allowed them to sneak up on their prey in murky waters. I guess if you imagine seeing the silhouette of their body from a distance, it would be perceived as much farther away. You wouldn't be able to tell that within that silhouette is a head that is much closer to you. A heinous thought, if you ask me. Plesiosaurs would turn out to be much more successful than the extra-long Tanystropheus, and would live on far beyond the Triassic. It seems as though they had much stiffer necks and short, stiff trunks, making them slightly more difficult to decapitate, I would imagine. They also developed bonier joints in their wrists and ankles, rather than like cartilaginous. So within their flippers, they had much more rigid bones, which helped them move around easier. As we move through the Mesozoic era, you're going to see a lot more updates with them, so stay tuned for that. All right. The last group I want to introduce you to is one that ended up taking on a form that we're pretty familiar with in our own oceans today. The Ichthyosaurs, who would eventually become dolphins of the Mesozoic, hundreds of millions of years before dolphins even thought of existing. This is yet another ideal body form that has worked for multiple lineages. For the marine reptiles, it allowed them to make it through at least one mass extinction, and potentially 2. There's some new updates. Ichthyosaurs were initially thought to have evolved during this post-Permian mass extinction radiation that we have been talking about for the entire video. But in 2023, on a remote Arctic island called Svalbard, scientists found the remains of the earliest ichthyosaurs that we know of in rocks that date to the late Permian period. And not like on its way to the ichthyosaur form. No. A fully marine ichthyosaur. Absolutely sick development, if you ask me. With this new evidence, that means that...
This is the same thing that she brought up in her other video, too, that was like a bit more recent. But like, we're still finding advancements in this stuff right around the corner. 2023 just happened. This is not something that we've been taught. Like, this was nowhere near my history books. Man, this is insane.
With this new evidence, that means that ichthyosaurs not only survived the Triassic mass extinction that we're about to get to, but it also survived the Permian extinction. Two catastrophic mass extinctions.
And it's still here.
Clearly,
the shape is
they
still
have
here.
an ideal body for it. And that's not the only new development in the ichthyosaur community. Actually, the biggest one was just announced this year. I talked about it in short, but now I'll talk about it in this alone. So, in May 2020, 11-year-old Ruby Reynolds came across a jawbone while on the beach with her dad in the UK. It was massive and turned out to belong to a Triassic ichthyosaur. Based on analysis that was just announced this year, turns out it was not only the largest ichthyosaur that we know of, but the largest marine reptile to ever exist that we know of. It's now called Ichythosaur savernensis, and it got to the size of a blue whale. The largest ichthyosaurs known before Ichythotitan were in a group called Shastasaurus. Similar vibe and estimated to have gotten to about 70 feet long. Ichythotitan blew them right out of the water.
Sure did.
With an estimated length of 82 feet long, which is about the size of an average blue whale. Not the biggest, so they're not the biggest to ever exist, because now Peruscetus got fucked as well. Blue whale is still the biggest to ever exist that we know of. The Triassic was clearly a time of...
Which is still insane to me, by the way.
Right.
That's nuts to me that of all the time periods, all these crazy ass evolutions, you know, she's been talking about, you know, Earth's acid trip. And we here today, right now, have the biggest animals to ever exist.
And when you think about the Triassic period, you think about the major growth they had in these huge land reptiles. You know what I mean? We're crushing y'all, dog. We're crushing y'all. Go to the water.
Let's go band for band right now.
Band for band. Go in the ocean right now in 2024. Them bitches are huge. We out here eating, son.
Let's go ocean creature for ocean creature right now.
Yeah. Infinite bands. You broke niggas can't. Check out our anime videos. They're hilarious.
Oh my God.
Experimentation of all shapes and sizes. And this was the only period that these behemoths existed. Because the mass extinction at the end of this period, well, overshadowed by the Permian and the Cretaceous, was still powerful enough to decimate ecosystems of all kinds, and led to the extinction of the large ichthyosaurs and up to 76% of all species on the planet about 201 million years ago. So, just to recap, 50 million years before this, Permian mass extinction, most devastating of all time. 16 million years after that, Permian pluvial episode. And then 30-ish million years after that, we had another mass extinction. And lost 76% of all species that have been dragging their way out of disaster. So what caused this one? What the fuck was wrong now? Take a swift guess. Volcanic activity. Remember how I mentioned that at the end of this period, Pangea was starting to break apart? What looks like at the area where modern-day North America and Africa began to separate, it set off a chain reaction of first, a massive outpouring of lava that lasted for like 620,000 years, and resulted in overall lava coverage of 10 million square kilometers over central Pangea. This led to a massive release of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, reduced oxygens in oceans all around the world, which suffocated both marine and terrestrial life, just as the world was entering what would eventually be known as the true reign of the dinosaurs. So what does this mean for them? I think it's easy to imagine them as a lineage that rose to dominance through competition, annihilating their competitors, etc. Awesome. But that wasn't really the case. They rose to dominance through opportunity and having the right set of traits to survive devastating extinction events. And they would emerge as arguably the most successful group of all time. They spread the fuck out and were the key components of ecosystems in multiple different levels for over 150 million years. And if we consider sauropods as a whole, including marine reptiles and pterosaurs, there's just absolutely no room for debate. And we'll be covering that next time, along with how other groups were handling this superpower. Of course, I can't leave out the little guys. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Also, if you enjoyed how long this video was, let me know by liking and commenting.
It stressed us out, but it was great. Hey,
I enjoyed it.
Thanks for bringing me here again.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome for the snacks.
Thank you.
You're welcome for the snacks.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, don't put that in your ear again. It's got hot sauce on it. It will burn the hell out of you. Okay, wait, it'll wake your ass up though. How about that? What is your favorite part of this video? Because this was a big one. The Triassic period, one of the lesser known on your end.
Yes.
Probably the lesser covered. I had to get this in college and in museum to figure out. So Triassic specifically has some of the more weird guys that I really enjoy. Yeah. But what did you like about it?
Let me go back through my notes.
Yeah, of course.
Do
it.
I mean, I think I honestly just enjoyed the diversity.
Very nice.
Like the biodiversity was just like really fascinating. You know what I mean? And also, of course, everyone knows I like reptiles. Yeah. So this is like this is great for me. You know what I mean?
What's that leg one with the thing in the back with the scaly, feathery one?
The ones that look like feathers?
Yeah, the scaly, feathery one.
Longisquama.
Longisquama is my new favorite animal.
I like the name too. Longisquama.
I gotta try to remember that. I won't, but I want to.
Yeah.
Longisquama.
What was your favorite part?
Longisquama.
Yeah.
Yeah, you introduced me to the Longisquama. A little bit of mystery, a little bit of familiar form, a little bit of, almost said pelican, but a little bit of...
It was also funny to see the whole thing about like the bugs and everything. Yeah. Because like I hate bugs, but like they're obviously like essential to our ecosystem. I didn't know every
bee and ant was a wasp.
Yeah.
That's devastating news.
I mean, it makes sense. They're all
Don't you try to justify that. That's like learning that you were born of sin. I mean, that's just a terrible thing.
It's like people finding out that Elizabeth Olsen is related to Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. Like you didn't see the family resemblance. Yeah. You looked at her face. Yeah. And you didn't see Mary Kate and Ashley.
It's like when you figure out that Horus is related to Angron, and you're like, really, guys? Angry implants versus godlyhood? How are we the same person? That's how it felt when you said what you said to me. That's how it felt. I just wanted you to feel that.
Right, except like everyone knows who Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen are.
Do you understand how I felt? Because that's the point.
And everyone knows who Elizabeth Olsen. Do you know who Elizabeth Olsen is?
Do you get it? Do you see how you're making me feel? Purposely alienating me with obscure facts?
Obscure?
Tell me about Angron. What is your favorite trait? Exactly, you can't. Born of a slave world, has angry implants to make him kill.
I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here.
Okay.
I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. I'm excited for the next installment.
Let me know what your favorite part was in the bottom. I'm gonna read it, so don't you slack on it.
We're gonna go over to Chavez's channel. She just released a video about the heinous world of zombie infections. And, you know, loving my husband is like having a zombie infection. So I feel like this belongs on his channel. Don't forget
if I go down, I'm taking you with me.
Don't forget to leave your reaction requests and recommendations down in the comments below.
In the bottom.
And other than that,
let's get out of here.
Peace out. Hope it's getting lit.